just had to make sure, unfortunately, our intercom system had a misfunction today, so we did not have time to have this meeting, so. All right, I'm calling to order. This is the Owen J. Roberts Board of School Directors regular business meeting being held on May 20th, 2019 at 7 p.m. Can you hear me okay? In the back? All right, good. I said, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and presentation of colors by the Navy Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, followed by a moment of silence. Present colors.
Colors, present. Colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join us in a moment of silence in memory of Evangeline Barrett, grade 12, who passed away on May 15th. Also reflect on those serving in the United States Armed Forces, both past and present, the elected leaders for the state of Pennsylvania, and elected leaders of our nation. We have much to be thankful for in our community. Thank you. Post the colors.
Color. Carry. Colors. Ready, set. Color guard. Forward. March. Color guard. Hold. Up. Color guard. Up about. Face. Color guard. Forward. March.
Please be seated. Hi. The Board of Directors met on the following dates in executive session to discuss items in one or more of the following areas of personnel and legal matters. May 6th and previously May 20th to this meeting. Agenda item 4, we have the superintendent's report. Dr. Roy.
I'm going to turn it over to Ahmed. This is Ahmed's last report, student body president. So Ahmed, what do you got for us tonight?
Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. I'll be starting off with the high school. So the high school marching band will perform at Walt Disney World, and the jazz band will perform at Universal Studios during the band's spring trip to Orlando, Florida in the spring of 2020. For the 5th year in a row, the high school jazz band will be the featured entertainment act at Nobles Amusement Park in Ellisburg, PA on June 1st, 2019. Kat Bobo and Isabella Mose were chosen for a region choir, and while Michael Marr and Robin Malin were selected for all-state choir. On Saturday, May 11th, students from the Robotics Club participated in the MATE PA Regional ROV competition at Villanova University. And at the DECA competition, they competed at the Invention Convention at the CCIU on May 13th, and 3 of our teams were ranked. To the middle school over the last...
Will you hold the microphone closer to your mouth so the people in the back
There we go.
can
Okay. Over the last...
hear yourself? Perfect.
Over the last couple of weeks, there we go. We've enjoyed our 8th grade chorus concert as well as our spring band concert. The combined middle school and high school orchestra concert will be held on May 23rd. The middle school was excited to welcome our current 6th grade students to our building on May 30th for their orientation. The 8th grade trip to Gettysburg will take place on May 30th. The trip is the culminating activity for their Civil War week. And Student Council is sponsoring the 8th grade farewell dance on May 31st. As for our elementary schools are looking forward to the return of our 2019 seniors for the annual senior walk on May 29th. As am I. 6th grade promotion ceremonies will be taking place in each building over the next few weeks. For East Coventry, the 4th and 5th grade reading Olympic teams recently completed their competitions, and now we are preparing for the school-wide picture and color award day on May 20th. On North Coventry, The Chester County Envirothon was held on May 1st at Hibernia County Park, where we took first place in the wildlife category. And North Coventry's Citizenship Awards program will take place on May 30th. For French Creek students and staff successfully completed the Great Kindness Challenge and achieved their goal of becoming a kindness certified school. Congratulations to the 4th and 5th grade Reading Olympics team for earning blue ribbons at the recent competition. 6th grade students are gearing up for the annual 6th grade versus staff kickball game to be held on June 4th. For West Vincent's game day took place on May 10th and included a variety of friendly and competitive activities. On May 8th, West Vincent celebrated its annual Fine Arts Night, which included a performance by the chorus. On May 13th, our PTA hosted Muffins with Moms. The theme for this event was positivity and included a guest speaker and psychologist, Shyla Kennedy. And as for East Vincent, the annual art show will be held on May 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. And recently we held Unity Day, which is a two-part event that featured collaborative opportunities to strengthen relationships and foster social and emotional learning. And that concludes my report as for the schools, but I'd just like to say something to the school board, as this is my last meeting and as I have to leave a little early today. First of all, I'd just like to thank the school board for all they do for our school and for the community as a whole. And especially, I'd like to thank them for allowing student government to kind of participate in the advancement of our school. And I've seen through my 4 years of high school here so many great changes made and so many great opportunities presented to me. So I'd just like to thank you all for playing such a big role in our day-to-day lives. And I'm excited to see what the future of our district holds. So thank you again.
Thank you. So Ahmed, the school board has a token of their appreciation for you. Mrs. Hazard's going to bring that over. We want to thank you for your service this past year as Student Government Executive Council President. We understand that you will be attending the University of Penn, and we wish you all the best. And I know you have to. And you have permission to go. So we know you have to leave, so we're kicking you out of your seat because now we have John Buckwalter who's going to be taking your place. So ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'd like you to meet the new student body president for next year, John Buckwalter.
You sure you don't want your name placard for your college room?
No.
Okay.
Just checking.
All right, John, you got some big shoes to fill. So I hope you're ready with your fascinating reports. All right, welcome aboard. So we're going to continue on now with our student recognition portion of the program. And this evening we have with us our Special Olympics athletes. And so first up, Dr. McKillop, you're going to tell us about the French Creek athletes. All right, I'm coming around to shake hands.
Yes, good evening. On behalf of the school board and the administration, we would like to recognize the following French Creek Special Olympians: Lily Shahosky, Noah Hales, Carl Kristen, Brooklyn Rogers, and Sojourn Roy.
We have something for you. Come on over.
He's showing us his skills. Thank you very much.
So moms and dads, just so you know what's happening, as they receive their awards and they're heading out for their school picture in the lobby. So, North Coventry, you're up next.
Good evening. On behalf of the Owen J. Roberts School Board, myself, administration, and North Coventry Elementary School, I would like to honor Liam Sabo as North Coventry's special Olympian. Liam.
On behalf of the school board and administration, I'd like to recognize my good friend Arjun Chatawal.
Congratulations, nice job.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the middle school and the school board of directors, I'm joined up here today by Mr. Jeff Paul, our supervisor of special education at the middle school. I'd like to recognize the following athletes from our middle school. If they can come forward at this time. Danielle Willauer. Jessica Willauer. Josh Dillinger. And Kylie Bush.
Are you going to head out with Mr. Stoltzfus for a photo? All right, down the way.
Good evening. I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the school board and the administration to acknowledge the Owen J. Roberts High School Special Olympics. Athletes joining us here tonight are Madison Marzella and Kathy Parker.
It's okay. We're happy you can make it, though.
Thank you again, and congratulations to all the fine student athletes. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Richardson, who will honor our DECA students. Thank you.
Right up front here. Good evening. On behalf of the school board and the high school, also Mr. Burtnett, who's not able to be here tonight. The following Owen J. Roberts DECA members earned the right to represent the state of Pennsylvania at DECA's International Career Development Conference in Orlando, Florida. These future marketing leaders were selected through at least 2 levels of competition as the best marketing students out of over 3,500 Pennsylvania DECA members. At the ICDC, the Owen J. Roberts delegation competed against 21,000 DECA members with approximately 150 to 200 projects in each event. Owen J. Roberts DECA won the following awards at the 2019 ICDC. Dan Duffy and Matt Foster, finalists in Top 20 in the International Business Plan. Leo Damiani, high case role play score for business service marketing. And then other Owen J. Roberts DECA members qualifying to the ICDC include Annie Arditi, Michael Giacoppinello, Stephen Boundy, Taylor Severin, Sarah Tabataba E. and Ahmed Albi, Julia Brennan and Madeline Zarkowski, Andrew LaGreca and Nicholas Wood, Needy Kupani, Heidi Joyce and Olivia Hermanos, Caitlin McGee, Grant Reitz, and Christina Hoffman. Congratulations.
Good evening. We're here to recognize 3 special groups of student athletes tonight. The first group is going to be our girls lacrosse team. Coach Schlesinger was unable to make it tonight. He's got a lacrosse association meeting for All-Americans, so he needed to be there. Coach Youngblood, who has never seen the microphone he doesn't like, is going to fill in, so I'm not too worried about it. The Owen J. Roberts girls lacrosse team has enjoyed a fantastic season thus far. They are currently 17-4 and contending for a spot in the PIAA state playoffs. The team won their 5th consecutive PAC championship and had an undefeated league record, which was 16-0 versus the PAC teams. They outscored their opponents 252-86 for an average margin of 10 goals a game in the league, which is impressive. The team made the 3rd round of the District 1 playoffs, but were defeated 16-11 on Saturday in a tough physical game. However, the dream for the state title continues on Tuesday. Hope to see a lot of people out for that one, where if they beat Westchester Ruskin, they'll punch their ticket to the state playoffs. There was a few amazing milestones by the team. Hannah Delahaye exceeded the 100-goal plateau in only her 2nd season at OJR, and she's close to topping 100 goals for the season. Maddie Curry set a career assist record for the school and exceeded 200 points for her career. And Eloise Ebert eclipsed both the 200-point and 200-goal marks, which is an extraordinary achievement by an amazing player. The team plays with class, incredible skill, competitiveness, and respect for the game, and they care deeply about their teammates and have made their coaches very proud. So I'm going to get Coach Youngblood to introduce these young ladies to you.
Thank you, Dr. Cuthbert, for that great introduction. Standing to my left here is Coach Melina Avery. She's the varsity assistant. Standing to my right, start with Delaney Drucker. Standing next to her is Kira Weiss, Carly Sharp, Veronica Roach, Gabby Dietrich, Aiden Fry, Emily Himmelreich, Maddie Corey, Sophia Murray, Eloise Ebert, Kaden Jarvis, and Maggie Kilgallen.
Okay, next we're doing the high school track team.
Coach Marco is going to be handling the introductions here in a minute. Just want to say a couple things about the boys and girls track teams who both had excellent seasons. We're here tonight to recognize our PAC champions from those 2 groups. The boys 4x8 team won the PAC championship with a season best time of 809.57. The team was fast enough to qualify for District 1 championship this past weekend, and the same team competed this past weekend at the District Championship where they finished 17th. The girls 4x8 team won the PAC championship as well with a time of 948.82. The team also ran fast enough for the District 1 championship this past weekend and were able to qualify for the district final, but did not qualify for states, just narrowly missed. We also want to recognize Mackenzie Kurtz, who was the PAC champion in the girls 800-meter run with a time of 2:21.88. Mackenzie did qualify for the District 1 championship, but only completed in the 4x8 relay this past weekend. Aiden Hayward also was a PAC champion in the boys discus. Aiden's mark of 166 feet and 3 inches not only won the event, but broke the school record from a long time ago, 1967. That's an impressive achievement. Aiden also went on to win the District 1 championship in the discus and finished 2nd in the shot put. He will compete in both events this weekend at the PIAA State Track and Field Championship meet. So, Coach Barker, you want to introduce our athletes?
Sure. Tonight we have Matt Ruther and Vincent Fennell from the boys 4x100 PAC championship team. And then we have Emma Torak, Emily Glazer, and Kenzie Kurtz from the girls 4x100 team. And Mackenzie also won the Open 800 PAC championship.
Okay, next we have, Mr. DePaver's going to do our students that are going into military after graduation.
Good evening again. At this time, on behalf of the school board and administration, I would like to acknowledge the Owen J. Roberts senior students who will be serving our country in the military after graduation. The students that are in attendance with us this evening are Evan Bratton, for the United States National Guard, Zachary Engelhardt, for the United States Army, Eloise Gebert, with the United States Naval Academy, William Jackson, Army National Guard, Dylan Richter, United States Marine Corps, Jessica Sheehan, the Army National Guard at Westchester University, and Eric Friedemann from Bob Tech, Navy ROTC. Congratulations again, and thank you for serving our future in the country. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn over to Caroline Slade, who will be acknowledging our salutatorians and valedictorians and the teacher who made a difference in their lives.
All right, so on behalf of the school board, I would like to recognize all the valedictorian and salutatorians of the class of 2019. What we do for these young superstars is to have them come up and read a statement about a teacher that had a significant impact in their life and their education. In turn, that teacher will come up and read a statement honoring that student. So we'll start out with our first salutatorian, Sam Hornady, who is going to be attending the University of South Carolina Honors College and majoring in environmental science. Sam?
They're already telling you they can't hear, so you have to stand really close, and you should be able to hear yourself. You can't hear yourself now. Okay?
Can you guys hear me?
There you go.
So I only had Mr. Richardson as a teacher for 1 year, my freshman year, in the first year of Intro to Engineering, which I thought sounded fun. For the record, I wanted to have him as a teacher again after that course, but he unfortunately moved on from AP Environmental Science the year that I was eligible to take it. But as I was saying, 9th grade, just like everyone else, I didn't know what to expect from high school or the amount of effort required to have my goals being at the top of my class realized. Mr. Richardson was more than willing to show me by giving me a C for completing everything that his rubric asked for on the first assignment of the year. He explained to me that doing just what is required is an average level work, and that's why it earned me a 70-something. That first quarter of engineering was a wake-up call to the new level of difficulty that accompanies honors and AP level work. After that, I knew what I had to do to earn the grades I wanted and finished the year with the best grade in my ITE class, and now with some of the best grades in my 2019 class. I said I only had Mr. Richardson as a teacher for 1 year. That isn't 100% true if you consider my 7th grade year of OJF soccer, when his coaching showed me how to work hard for success in my sports too. It wasn't too hard on us, but the lessons they taught us about hard work could be physically seen by the infinity sign that we created on the pit hill from the fittingly endless amount of times that we had to run along the trampled path of that dreaded loop. All the way back then, from the first time he pronounced my last name wrong and I was too intimidated to correct him, Mr. Richardson was showing me what it takes to be as successful as I can be. Since this early friendship, I haven't met another teacher that treats me with as much respect as Mr. Richardson. More than any other staff member that I've come across, Mr. Richardson makes me feel welcome and comfortable in conversation with him. He gave me the feeling that I could count on him through my high school journey, and he has certainly held true to that first impression. So, in conclusion, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Richardson, for showing me early on what it would take to be here today. And I'm glad to have this brief opportunity to thank you and show some appreciation for the guidance you provided me on my high school journey.
So, having known Sam since he first walked onto a 7th grade soccer field, I'm happy and honored to speak on his behalf tonight. I taught Sam honors introduction to engineering, as he told you, in his freshman year, where he met the challenges of this new course with the same type of grit and determination that I came to expect from him on the soccer field when I was coaching him. One of the marks of a successful student and learner is the ability to persevere through adversity. Sam was able to do this in his freshman year and finish the engineering course with in the high 90s and with the higher marks in this class. It is clear that Sam has taken this approach in all of his academics, completing with distinction 10 AP courses over the last 3 years. Sam challenged himself with other academics as well, including honors ecology and Mr. Garman's honors chemistry class. Sam's teachers described him as a student who was not afraid to step outside of his comfort zone to experience learning. Sam's desire to understand often prompted questions in class which not only benefited Sam, but other students around him. Sam was a student who was willing to devote time outside of school in pursuit of academic goals, with maturity often seen in older students. After returning from the summer ecology trip to Costa Rica, he participated in a marine conservation course at the Brown Environmental Leadership Lab. In addition to excelling in academics, Sam has played soccer on the school team each year, this year being voted captain. Sam has shared his skills in math and science by acting as a peer tutor in high school. He is a member of the World Language Honor Society, the Science National Honor Society, and a co-founder of the Computer Science Club. Sam will be attending the Honors College at the University of South Carolina this fall. Sam, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak on your behalf, and congratulations on being a salutatorian.
Our next salutatorian is Kenzie Milne, who will be attending Penn State University, University Park, and majoring in biology. Kenzie.
So I also chose to talk about Mr. Richardson. Mr. Richardson has become a mentor to me and has helped me grow into the person I am today. The first time I met Mr. Richardson was sophomore year in my Intro to Engineering class. He was always a person you could bounce ideas off of, whether it was figuring out how to deactivate a simulated nuclear power plant or building a fishing wharf. But he helped me the most by starting the International Baccalaureate program. I remember as a sophomore learning about this program in Dr. A's class. I was unsure on whether or not I wanted to be the guinea pig of this program, as I had no idea what to expect. I can say 2 years later that this was the best decision of my high school career. While I was disappointed he was no longer teaching IB Environmental Science, he has helped me in many other ways. Through this program, he's brought together a tight-knit group of friends. I've met some of my best friends through IB and got to spend time with them every day, multiple times a day, in our IB classes. Mr. Richardson has been there to support us every day since we joined, whether it was coming to my soccer games to support OJR or pulling us out of class to see our progress in the numerous portfolios and assignments. He helped us manage our schedules and ensured we would be able to fit all the classes we wanted to take, which at times was too many. While I may not have realized that joining IB would require this much work and effort, Mr. Richardson has always been there to keep us on task and make things easier. He always knows how to brighten the mood when we are working on our 3,000-word ethical dilemma papers or our service learning and language development portfolios. But most importantly, his office has become a safe place for me and my classmates. We are able to talk through what is stressing us out, and he's always able to find a way to fix it, whether that is jokes or finding a way to break up the workload. He's truly one of those teachers that cares about his students and wants to see them succeed. Overall, I am very thankful to have met Mr. Richardson sophomore year and have been a part of an experience I will never forget and cherish forever.
Good evening, again. It's my pleasure to stand here and speak on behalf of Kenzie, one of this year's salutatorians. I met Kenzie, as she said, in one of our STEAM electives as a sophomore in the engineering class. And although I only taught her for the first half of the course, it was clear that she was a serious student that valued hard work. After the first few projects, it also became clear that she had her own set of standards. Kenzie consistently met project goals and met her own set of standards that typically exceeded ours. She helped set the bar for project work in our engineering courses. The 2017-18 school year was the first year that we offered the International Baccalaureate Career Program. Kenzie was one of the first to express interest and is in the first class that will receive an IB certificate this year. Kenzie has completed the rigorous IB program while continuing to take AP courses in her junior and senior year. She has obviously excelled in those classes as well. As a part of the IB program, Kenzie completed a culminating senior project on the ethics of 3D organ printing. Kenzie has set her sights on veterinary medicine. To this end, as part of the IB program, she took 2 courses from our life science offerings, including genetics. She completed her service work volunteering at an animal rescue facility and completed additional volunteer work beyond what was required, teaching young students how to ride and care for horses. She's a member of the National Honor Society, the National Science Honor Society, National German Honor Society. While excelling in academics, Kenzie also managed to make her mark on the soccer field each year. And she's leaving here tonight to go to a state championship game to make her mark on that field. So, good luck there. All the successes and honors you've received are outstanding, but I want to bring you back to what got you here. You're a hard worker, have a love of learning, and are willing to give of your time to help others, and have set high standards for yourself in all of these areas. I'm honored to speak on your behalf as you are presented as one of the salutatorians of the class of 2019. Congratulations and good luck at Penn State Fall.
Our next salutatorian is Nadia Rompalati, who will be attending the University of Pennsylvania and majoring in international relations. Nadia.
Is the volume good? I remember the day that I met Miss Seiler. On my first morning of junior year, I walked into her room and was greeted by a bright array of decorations. It was like no other classroom I had ever seen before. There were cute stuffed animals and colorful posters and the iconic 2 high-heel chairs. Miss Seiler explained that she understood an AP class and junior year itself could be very stressful, and she would make this sincere effort to help alleviate the anxiety in any way she could. Though the class could be challenging, Miss Seiler constantly reminded her students that her door was always open, and even held after-school review sessions on multiple occasions before exams for anyone who wanted to attend. Miss Seiler's class was unforgettable. Every project extended beyond the classroom, helping us learn important lessons about media, history, and even ourselves. She taught us critical thinking skills and an independence to prepare us for any future studies. Not only is Miss Seiler an amazing teacher who makes every class lively and engaging, she also genuinely cares about every single student. Just as with school troubles, she was always there to lend an ear to students who were dealing with difficulties. She would always check in with students, and when anyone was going through a hard time, Miss Seiler would even let her classes have the opportunity to make uplifting cards for them. To this day, Miss Seiler still checks in with me, and she was almost as excited as my own parents when she found out about my college acceptances. After starting my mock trial team, she was our biggest advocate, cheering us on the whole way. During my 4 years, I have been really fortunate to have some incredible and understanding teachers, but Miss Seiler was one of the top. When I was struggling with my health, she was there to help me catch up. When I had symptoms, she understood even though she had never had a concussion herself. She constantly reminded me and the entire class to be mindful. Miss Seiler taught us all the important skills that we will need not only for the classroom, but for life. Miss Seiler's classroom was definitely not an ordinary one, but that's because Miss Seiler is no ordinary teacher. There are few who so clearly adore teaching and who truly see and care about their students as individuals. I don't know if I can ever thank Miss Seiler enough for all her help and support, but I know that I speak for countless classmates when I say thank you, Miss Seiler, for everything.
I knew you would cry.
We all knew you would cry.
I know. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I can't help it. Okay, so I've known about this for a couple of weeks, and I've been thinking about, how can I express Nadia to you? There are so many things that I want to share with you about her. First, it is an honor to speak for her. As a student, she has achieved so much. There are a few things that I want you to know about her, though. She was more than a student. She was not one to simply look at her grade and say, okay. She wanted to learn about what was wrong and what she could do to improve. She really loves learning. She is curious about learning. She has never stopped asking questions.
which is great most of the time. But it is her curious nature that propels her to dig deeper into concepts, and to me, this love of learning is what truly makes her not a student, but a scholar. I worked with Nadia many times, one-on-one, and always she impressed me with her desire to improve. I knew she was a leader in the classroom, but it was when I wrote her letter of recommendation that I began to see the complete picture of who Nadia really is. She leads in the classroom by her work ethic, and outside as a leader in the school by co-founding the mock trial, helping new students with the Wildcat Ambassadors. She is also generous of heart with all of her charity work that she does. She was my student, but I'm the one who learned. She taught me how to overcome obstacles, how to challenge adversity, and how to be resilient. She has made her mark on me, on Owen J. Roberts, and I believe it will bear witness to her mark on the world. Congratulations.
Our final salutatorian is Morgan Pritchard, who will be attending the Schreier Honors College at Penn State University, University Park, and majoring in civil engineering. Morgan.
Tonight, I would like to honor Mrs. Sanchez, and I would like to say thank you. Thank you for everything you have done for me, Mrs. Sanchez. Well, some may know, I came to this school in sophomore year, and I came across the country, meaning I knew no one at this school, or in this community, for that matter. Starting at a new school was hard, to say the least, but having a teacher that I feel I could talk to was everything some days. I knew that Mrs. Sanchez cared about me, and who I was, not only as a student, but as a person. I remember one day, I came into class, and Mrs. Sanchez came over to me and explained how she had no idea that I spoke French and just thought it was the coolest thing. It seems silly now, but having one of my teachers interested in my life, beyond their subject matter, stayed with me. It has been over 2 years since that day, and I can still remember sitting in the computer lab working on an essay during that class period. Even though you were only my teacher for a year, it's been a while, and it's been a while since I've been a student in your classroom. I still feel that I could not have achieved this award without you. You allowed me to feel a sense of community in what during the first days here seemed to be a never-ending hallway of bricks. While I have had several other teachers since sophomore year who have inspired me, you allowed me to start my high school career here at Owen J. Roberts as a successful one. You were in my corner when I needed help, and I thank you for that. I want you to know that you have my appreciation and my gratitude, so thank you.
When I first received the invitation to tonight's event, I actually did a little double take at the computer screen. It was kind of like, you know, when you're walking down the hall and a cool, popular person waves to you, and you wave back, and you're like, wait, was that for me? And it was because I was surprised that Morgan felt that way about me, because it was actually, it's like more how I feel about her. Morgan was always a little intimidating to me, so I feel like this is an extra special honor for me to have, so thank you. I couldn't believe that I had influenced Morgan's academic career, because I could see right away from day one that she was an extraordinary student and an extraordinary person. I learned pretty early on that she came from a faraway land called Oregon, and that her previous school was something called a French immersion school. And when she told me that, I quietly went back to my desk and secretly Googled what that meant so that I could talk to her about it without sounding like an idiot. I could tell that Morgan was exceptionally intelligent and mature, and that she was going to be a force to be reckoned with academically, but also just in general. This was all confirmed after reading and grading her summer assignment, and so I made it my mission that year to know more than Morgan knew, so that I wasn't a complete waste of her time. After my 11 years here at the high school, I have come across only a handful of students, out of more than 1,000 students I've personally taught, who I worry about having something to contribute to their learning. I mean, here was Morgan, fluent in, obviously, English, but also French, And there I was, spending 30 minutes on her essay just to see if there was any true valuable feedback I could provide to her other than, wow, great job. Students like Morgan are far and few between, but they're the ones who keep us, teachers, on our toes. They motivate us to think outside the box and change things up so that our students aren't bored. They challenge us to study more and provide engaging lessons so that we aren't wasting anyone's time. In addition to her capacity for her learning and writing and all things academic, Morgan was also so mature and understanding. I remember her class was very large, maybe 30 kids, many of whom had a lot of energy. In a class I had to change seats around 1 million times just so I could get through a lesson without 1 million interruptions. There were many kids I probably should have sat up front so as to avoid these interruptions, yet I always held a few seats right up front for Morgan and a couple of her friends so that I could look to them for sanity at any point. Someone would say something ridiculous or something would fly across the room, and I would send an apologetic look in Morgan's direction, and she would send back a super knowing, I know you're doing your best, and I would feel better. So Morgan, as you graduate with this highly prestigious title, I wish you all the best. Thank you for being such a motivator to me and for reigniting my own love of learning because of what I saw in you. I now have 2 little ones, and I think often that if my 2 little ones can grow up to be even just a morsel of the type of person that Morgan is, I will be very lucky and I feel very honored. So good job, Morgan's parents. You are going to go very far in life, and I am proud, honored, and humbled to have been even just a small influence in helping you to achieve your dreams. Congratulations and best of luck, and we are.
I would now like to introduce our valedictorian of the class of 2019, Jake Ayub. You'll be attending the University of Pennsylvania and majoring in actuarial science. Jake.
De vez em quando, uma persona te inspira en tu vida y te da algo que te permite crecer. Tengo suerte que haya alguien como esto en mi escuela. From time to time, someone inspires you and gives you something which allows you to grow. I am lucky enough to have someone like this in my school. Senora Andres, or Profe, as we know her, has been a staple in my mornings for the past 2 years. While others rely on a cup of coffee or an energy drink to shock themselves awake, I consistently bank on the Spanish music blaring as I walk into her classroom to jumpstart my day. I've never left the United States, and prior to entering Profe's room, I had never truly had an appreciation or passion for anything outside of this country. Through various movies, personal stories, lessons, and other classroom activities, Profe was able to show me that Spanish is much more than a set of vocabulary terms and a long table of verb conjugations. And being passionate about the language herself, Profe inspired me to develop a love for learning the language. She has shown me that there's more on this earth than Spring City, Pennsylvania, much more that I would like to explore. Her love for the language has opened me up to the many opportunities involving Spanish and allowed me to see the world from a different perspective. Before I merely found interest in mathematics and numbers, but now I am ready to take on completely new foreign experiences in large part due to her. Apart from academics, Profe has always been someone who was open to talk when I needed. Whether I was stressed about school, worried about looming college applications, or just wanted to talk with her about what was going on in my life, she was always there. She was always there to hear me vent or complain about an upcoming test, prepared to give me helpful advice on how to handle the situation before me. For the past 2 years, I have always looked forward to going to her class, knowing I could, for an hour, forget the stresses of my day and dive into the world of Espanol. For many, foreign language is a drag. For me, it was the best part of my day. I have been fortunate enough to be blessed with an amazing Spanish teacher, and even more fortunate to be with her for 2 years. Gracias por todo, Profe. Without you, I would not be where I am today.
Well, it is my honor to stand here and support Jake Ayub, who leads by example and whose hard work has paid off. It is my true pleasure to teach this young man these past 2 years. His academic achievements are evident, but I would like to share with you what his GPA and acceptance to Wharton does not show.
He is never boastful. He has a true desire to learn and to grow. He chose to participate in the National Spanish exam this year, scoring in the 91st percentile and earning a silver medal. In addition to his academic strengths, he has emotional intelligence. He demonstrates patience every day in the classroom, allowing others to contribute without getting frustrated if I make him wait before calling on him. He is never interested in overshadowing his peers. He is responsible. He often works ahead on assignments that I post on Canvas, using his time wisely when he knows he has a tough week ahead with sports or other obligations. He never complains about the workload. He is considerate. Last year, when he had a cold, he went through a full box of tissues that I had in my classroom. Ask any teacher and you will find that tissues are like gold. So for Christmas, the past 2 years, I received 3 boxes of gold, nicely wrapped and disguised contents. When I opened the present, I discovered Kleenex with lotion, the fancy kind. Sometimes students choose a Spanish name to use in class when they start learning a language. For some students, the name sticks and they continue to use it throughout their Spanish classes. So Jake has been known as Jacobo in the Spanish classroom, but this year he got the title of El Presidente as well, because he was the president of the Spanish club. Often, Jacobo sneaks in quietly during my second period to store his laptop behind my desk before heading to gym class, and sometimes to grab a tissue. I will definitely miss having Jake in class next year. But lastly, I want to thank his parents for raising such a fine young man whose kindness and humility will take him very far. Enhorabuena.
Dr. Lloyd, you are next is going to be our volunteer recognition.
So our final recognition of the evening on behalf of the school board, we are recognizing our PTA, PTO, and PTSA presidents. So let's see who's here. Ashley Pierce is from our East Coventry president. Kim Art. There she is. She's the outgoing East president. Laura Mulholland is our French Creek PTA president. Casey Heisey is the North Coventry PTO president. Cindy Hutchinson is from West Vincent. Maria Cantanero is our middle school PTSA president, and Louise, I don't see Louise. I always have to stop before I say her last name, is the PTSA president for the high school. Ladies, we so appreciate your leadership in the school district, all the programming that you bring for the students of your respective schools, and the tens of thousands of dollars that you raise for each of your schools is amazing. Thank you so much for your dedication. Pieces to my report. John, welcome again. I've known you since you were 11 or 12, I think, and now you're going to be a senior next year. One of the things that I'd like you to know about serving as the student representative is that the school board is interested in your voice and the voice of your peers. So we look forward to hearing from you. Just a reminder, no school on Friday or on Monday, May 27th. There's lots of upcoming events for the next few weeks for seniors, including the senior breakfast, yearbook dedication, the senior sports awards banquet, senior assembly, and the culminating event, graduation, which is scheduled for Friday, June 7th. Graduation is scheduled for 6:30 p.m., but if the weather looks bad for 6:30 and there's a chance of a clear, we'll delay it till 8 p.m. Our goal is always to have graduation outside so that everyone can be in attendance. If the weather, there's no chance to clear, then we will have graduation inside like we have in the past. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. All right, agenda item 5 is public comment. This is information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to voting agenda items 7 through 13 on the agenda. Speakers are indicate their name, township of residence, and the item on the agenda to which your comments are addressed. Speakers will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Please understand this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them for future deliberation. Okay, looks like we have no takers, so we're going to go on to our board committee reports. The Committee of the Whole, a meeting of the Committee of the Whole was held, meeting of the Committee of the Whole was held on May 6th at 6 p.m. at the East Coventry Elementary School. The following committees met at this time: Curriculum Instruction, Legislative and Policy, and Pupil Services and Special Education. Okay, we get 6.2, we have our Buildings and Grounds Committee. Mrs. Booth.
Thank you, Madam President. The Buildings and Grounds Committee met May 6, 2019, immediately following the Committee of the Whole in the East Coventry Elementary School cafeteria. Items discussed: feasibility study, steering committee update by Jackie Crumline, Chief Financial Officer; Owen J. Roberts, Facilities, MEP, Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing study presentation by Mike Shelgren, Assistant Director of Facilities; construction project updates, East Coventry, also by Jackie Crumline and Mike Shelgren; and discussion of the professional service maintenance agreements, again, Mike Shelgren. At this time, the committee approved recommendation to the board for Sharps Compliance Incorporated for medical waste pickup. Board approval will be on the June business meeting agenda. Other agenda items: June 15th, 2019 auction, and the board facilities warehouse Kurt Painter property tour, date finalized June 19th, 2019. The update for Buildings and Grounds and Security Audit executive summary has been shared with the board. Findings to be incorporated into the feasibility study draft by Marana Maine. The steering committee will be fully communicated with following Marana Maine's finalization. Goal: full presentation to the board and community during the September 9th, 2019 Committee of the Whole. East Coventry Playground installation. Installers are confirmed for May 24, 2019, following the PSSA testing window and district school closing, May 24, 2019. Noisy work will be completed at the time, and assembly work will be completed the following week. However, again, weather dependent. Reminder: East Coventry Owen J. Roberts District Auction, June 15, 2019. Come one, come all. Vehicles, food equipment, all kinds of interesting stuff. Old snow plows, whatever you can find. Tonight's voting agenda includes a single Buildings and Grounds item under new business. Item 13.9, approval of professional services and/or maintenance agreements, renewal for Electronic Security Corporation of America, Woodland, Pennsylvania, for standard fire and security alarm sales, monitoring, inspection, and service. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Now we have the Chester County Intermediate Unit, Mr. Minor.
Thank you. Since the last board meeting here at Owen J. Roberts, the primary activity of the IU has been the process of selecting a new executive director. The decision has come down to finalists, and the new director is going to be voted upon on the 29th in a special meeting. So we will have a new person introduced to us soon. The last board meeting, general board meeting, was shortened in order to allow us to continue the many hours that are required for that process. I forwarded a summary copy of that meeting to everybody on the board. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Thank you. We have curriculum instruction. Is anybody prepared?
Yes.
Because Mrs. Wolf cannot make our meeting tonight. Thank you.
Madam President, I hope everybody can hear me. Different microphone. The Curriculum and Instruction Committee met as part of the Committee of the Whole meeting on May 6th in the East Coventry Elementary School cafeteria.
There are 4 items on the agenda and a highlight from East Coventry. Students from East Coventry shared their writing journey, and the work they had done throughout the year on developing their writing skills. Guest students read their written essays. Dr. Soda provided a brief overview of the rubric used by the Pennsylvania State Modern Language Association for the Exemplary Program Award. The high school world language department qualified for the highest level of honor using that rubric. 2 teachers from the department shared information about the new exploratory language class for grade 6 students. Members of the first leadership development cohort presented their project about social emotional learning. They suggested that schools provide more consistency in this instruction. Dr. Soder discussed the work completed by the College Prep Review Committee during the school year at the high school. The committee's recommendations have been shared with the high school administration. Some of the ideas suggested will be part of the fall recommendations for the 2020-2021 program of studies. Other ideas may be incorporated into the high school schedule without the need for other courses. Dr. Lehman reviewed the process used for the science department audit and revision. The teachers identified several areas where new materials and new units of study will be implemented next year. The next curriculum and instruction committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 28th at 6 p.m. in the middle school LGI. This is a standalone committee meeting for the purpose of discussing tracking of students at the middle school. The next curriculum and instruction committee meeting scheduled as part of the committee of the whole will be Monday, September 9, 2019 in the French Creek Elementary School. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Next is extracurricular and interscholastic. Mrs. Whitlock.
We're going to have a full report at the next meeting so that we can complete the school year with our activities.
Thank you. Thank you. Finance Committee, Mr. Hughes.
So the Finance Committee.
Mine's on.
There we go. Okay, the Finance Committee has not met since our last Committee of the Whole meeting, or I'm sorry, since last month, but we did pass the final budget last month. That is sitting in the administration building for public viewing, and will be final vote in June. I'd like to thank Mrs. Carmine and her team for all the work they did to finish up the budget, and that's my report.
Thank you. Legislative and Policy Committee, Mr. Minor.
This is on.
Send me a song.
Don't get me started. The last Legislative and Policy Committee meeting was focused primarily on cleaning up our 300, 400, and 500 level policies to bring them in line with current language for contracts and current practice. So those have been brought up for first reading here. It's an awful lot, but not actually substantive changes for the most part. It's, as I said, mostly language things. And there's been one, the addition of the dress code policy is brought up, but that's been some very minor changes as well. So nothing of substance, but all important procedural process right now.
Thank you. Personnel Committee, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam President. The Personnel Committee met in executive session in compliance with the Sunshine Act on May 6th and May 20th with the full board to discuss personnel matters. Those discussions include the Director of HR hire, Act 93, and confidential secretary agreements. On tonight's agenda, along with our regular business, we note that under item 12.13, approval of the appointment of Director of Human Resources, Danielle A, effective 25 June, at an annual salary of $120,000. Currently, the Personnel Committee continues to work to renew the Act 93 confidential secretary agreements. We anticipate having the next meeting with those groups on about the 5th of June, after which we'll bring to the board on the June 17th regular meeting documents to be signed off on to close out that process. We are also working now with the annual superintendent, assistant superintendent review work, which we expect to be completed by the end of June. Future meetings will come as needed. I anticipate one rather soon as we wrap up a couple of things with Act 93 confidentials. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Next is Pupil Services and Special Education, Ms. Prophet.
All right. People Services met at the Committee of the Whole on May 6th, where we discussed the final task force committee meeting that was held on May 2nd. That committee meeting was to discuss a push start time. Models of push start time and a flexible schedule will be presented to People Services in September. At the COW meeting on May 6th, People Services Committee discussed surveying the public after the models are presented. As shared at the COW meeting, Lisa Hazard and I have started polling school districts in the PAC to better understand their stance on school start times, as these schools will have the greatest impact on our districts.
And we've gotten 2 responses so far. So. All right, thank you. Technology and Communication Committee, Ms. McCreary.
All right. I have no official report, but clearly we need to do some work on our sound system, so this is new. Matt, we need to work on that. So we'll have an update next meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, now on to our routine matters. Agenda item 7, the board will make a motion to approve the following routine matters, which are items 7.2 to 7.12 as action consent items. Do I have a motion? Mr. Minor, do I have a second? Mrs. Booth? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 8, approval of routine matters. The board will make a motion to approve the following routine matters, which are items 8.2 through 8.5. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fitzgerald, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 9, board communication. Mrs. Carmine.
Good evening, Madam President. I have 2 communications to the board that I was copied on. The first one was on April 29th. Ms. Zena Gavin sent out an email to the board with questions regarding an article that appeared in the Mercury for the budget, and Mrs. Hazard responded to Ms. Gavin on the next day, April 29th. The next communication that I was copied on was from Mrs. DiMarino on May 2nd regarding a fundraiser for the National Art Honor Society, and Dr. Lord responded to Mrs. DiMarino. And those are all the communications that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 10, board discussion. Does anybody have any items they would like to discuss?
Yes. At the committee of the whole meeting, we had the presentation of the consideration for revisions and the credit requirements for some of our classes for graduation. And the math for your credit issue came up. Since that is not likely to be any change, even if it is decided that a change is warranted, since that is a policy issue, is there any way that we can offer any sort of waiver to students who recognize that there's a good chance we're going to have an alternative coming 2 years from now, but maybe facing a year where they are stuck in an old policy that's not serving all of our students well? I ask that because as graduation requirements are actual policy, I assume we would actually have to go through a full 3 readings if we were even to provide a waiver. And the actual question is there a way to do that in time for the next school year so we could give these kids an alternative to a 4th math class?
I know, I had those same questions too after we had that policy because, well, first, when we listened to the CP review and then also the science review, there were topics that were raised that I've had questions with for a long time now, and there were things that Dr. Lehman said, maybe in both sections, that kind of were questions that may be related to the policies that Mr. Minor has said and brought up, like the requirements, the math. I know I got sent the list of requirements for CP, but that didn't answer all my questions. And the other question I asked was, when we did the math review in the cycles over the years, where was the report on what the math review was when it was done several years ago? I didn't understand the answer because I don't know why we didn't get a full report when we did the math review. So I too would like to understand when we can talk about these things again, and maybe see if we can come up with some other ideas that are simple fixes in my mind. Like if we don't make students take 4 years of math, they can take 3, they can take an extra science. Or I did notice in the information that you guys sent me, most of the schools do not require science in the high school level. So I also would like to know when we can have a meeting that incorporates looking at those areas. I don't think we have time to talk about that at the May 28th meeting. To talk about other areas.
I don't believe that we'll have time on the May 28th meeting, and that's been publicized as a meeting to focus on middle school. And so course selection has been completed by our students, and so in the fall, we'll be looking at exactly what you're talking about so that we can make the change for the following school year before we put out our program of study for students. So I think it's a topic for the fall, when we can have the curriculum committee come back together.
So that does mean that any of our seniors now who recognize that we are recognizing that we are out of step with our other districts really won't have an option for this coming year. They're simply going to be in that 4th year of math. That is not the majority approach and not required by state law. So I guess the very specific question is, since we know that we have students who do not do well in that and would prefer to take, for example, an AP English class or science class or something else, but they are stuck in a math class, we do have 3 meetings we could have in advance that would allow for an interim option of applying for a waiver. It would not necessarily pose a mass exodus, because I don't think most kids would actually avail themselves of that, but for kids who want to benefit their GPA and benefit what their ultimate college goals are or work goals are, could actually take advantage of it. That's an option I would throw on the table. The question is, are you seeing some reason other than the inconvenience of scheduling, which gets rescheduled all the time, we know at the beginning of the year, to not do that?
So what I hear you saying is you would like to request a curriculum committee meeting to review what you're discussing, and then we can include the high school administration and include the math department in that discussion?
I would say joint curriculum and legislative, because it is a policy. So policy could actually do it on its own on a matter of a vote and then taking it back to the board. I'm just wondering if there's some sense of where my reading of the curriculum meeting was that was something that was being positively viewed as being in the works. Therefore, not to inappropriately paraphrase John Kerry, but the idea is like, who's the last student to pay for a bad curriculum choice? And it's going to be every senior this coming year, when some might actually do better in other classes, and a very simple tweak might allow some of those to get a better option.
Okay, so if you allow me to pull my team together, and then we can get an answer by the end of the week.
And I think, Carl, you will have, if we do get a decision on it, you do have enough time, but you have to be right on top of this. You've got to have the LMP committee to forward it to the board, and we can get a couple of readings in so that it'll be approved before the next school year starts.
That's why I'm asking tonight, because it suddenly occurred to me that the time was there and that we weren't looking at the window otherwise. And this might actually allow for that. And we are generally very flexible with our students in all the ways that suit them, but this is one that it's so hardwired into what we do. I realized there was no way to alter that without the arrangement that I'm suggesting.
Okay, so Dr. Lloyd will get her team together, get their ducks aligned, and then what we need to do is get the curriculum and LMP committees working together simultaneously to get this accomplished.
I appreciate the consideration.
Do we have to formally ask for a curriculum meeting like we did the last time, Carl? I mean, the last time we had to request the meeting, you and I and Kathy, to get a meeting. I'm not on curriculum. Melissa, Kathy, and you.
May I request that you join me in requesting that we proceed with this process to investigate? Thank you.
And then Carl's LMP, so he can involve.
Right, I know. Well, he can, but Pam said that we had to have people sign the papers, so do we need to fill out a formal rating, Carl?
I don't think so. I think it was just a request. We have 3 or 4. I don't think Pam's going to argue in his chair. I can move forward with the LMP, and I don't think there's any argument.
Right, because if there's their curriculum committee here is already saying they agree to.
Just a discussion
I think the idea of the request was non-committee members needed to put it in writing. In this case, we're here in agreement.
All right.
Any other further board discussion?
I don't, except for I would like a report, which maybe it's a request for information, but I would like a report on where is the report of the math curriculum review that happened 2 years ago.
I put that in board line. There isn't a report. The reason there was a report for the science is because Mrs. Wolf specifically asked for that report to be created for the board so that the curriculum committee could illustrate for the board the process of reviewing curriculum. So the report that you're asking for does not exist because there was not a request for it at the time the math curriculum was reviewed.
So going forward, we would probably have reports when they're reviewed.
If you request one.
Well, so can I formally request now going forward we get a report? Because I am confused about why we didn't get a math report, honestly. And I don't want to, obviously there was no report, but there were things that came out that we've already talked about with science and math, so.
I would like to know if the rest of the board is interested in this report. This is not one of the district's goals for this year. Science was the goal for this year. It would take a considerable amount of time in these last weeks of school to generate something like that, when our focus is now on graduation and achieving the district goals that the board voted on. So if the rest of the board is interested in administration creating such a report, we can do so. But I just would like to remind the board that this was not part of the goals, that our focus this year was music and science. And so that's what we have focused on.
You're being nice enough to indulge me in my interest in the math policy change that would have an actual impact on students, so I feel no need for an additional report right now.
It's not an intent to create more work, it was just, it came up in our discussion, so I think we should. Having been on here for a couple of years, I think going forward we should have a report like that on every subject that's reviewed. So going forward, I think we should have something.
I'm not so sure your fellow board members would agree, given the length of the last meeting and the amount of time that was spent going over that science curriculum in great detail. So again, I just would ask if the rest of the board is interested in such a report, then please let me know.
It doesn't.
Going forward, yes.
It doesn't, going forward, yes.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to, but we don't review math again for 3 more years now, right? So the length of that meeting was very long. That's why I have always said we should have standalone curriculum meetings. I've been saying that for years now. So it's not me that called that meeting to make it 3 hours. We could have regular meetings and talk about those things as we go, and then we would be on top of things.
Okay, any further discussion? Do we have any old business? All right, on to our new business. Consent items 12.2 through 12.12. The board will make a motion to approve the following personnel matters, which are items 12.2 through 12.12 as action consent items. Do I have a motion? Mr. Minor? Mrs. Booth? Do I have any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We have 12.2 is our approval to accept retirements, and I do believe we have some people here today.
The first retirement that the school board would like to recognize is Margie Cole.
You have to come up.
So, Margie, this resolution is in honor of you. Whereas, Margie Cole, as an employee of the Owen J. Roberts School District for the past 23 years, has made a significant contribution to the students of the district, and whereas Ms. Colt has given unselfishly of her time, talents, and energies in serving the youth of our community by performing her job to the best of her ability. Whereas Ms. Colt has made a great impact on the Owen J. Roberts School District, now and in the future. And whereas Ms. Colt's retirement is richly deserved and recognized as one of high honor and distinction. Therefore, be it resolved that the Owen J. Roberts School Board of School Directors, the administration, and fellow employees of the Owen J. Roberts School District express deep appreciation to Margie Colt for 23 years of loyal service and wish Ms. Colt good health and continued success in future endeavors. Be it further resolved, the 5th day of June is officially declared Margie Colt Day in the Owen J. Roberts School District, adopted by the Board of School Directors of the Owen J. Roberts School District on the 20th day of May. Signed, Lisa Huzzard, School President, and me. Here at the high school as a paraprofessional. So we're also recognizing another individual from the special education department, and that is Diane Robb. Diane is currently a special education teacher at North Coventry. Did you and Margie work together?
We did.
So Diane, this is your resolution. Whereas Diane Robb, as an employee of the Owen J. Roberts School District for the past 21 years, has made a significant contribution to the students in the district. And whereas Ms. Robb has given unselfishly of her time, talents, and energies in serving the youth of our community by performing her job to the best of her ability. Whereas Mrs. Robb has made a great impact upon the Owen J. Roberts School District, now and in the future. Whereas Mrs. Robb's retirement is richly deserved and recognized as one of high honor and distinction. Therefore, be it resolved that the Owen J. Roberts Board of School Directors, the administration, and fellow employees of the Owen J. Roberts School District express deep appreciation to Diane Robb for 21 years of loyal service and wish Mrs. Robb good health and continued success in future endeavors. Be it further resolved, the 5th day of June be officially declared Diane Robb Day, also in the Owen J. Roberts School District, adopted by the Board of School Directors of the Owen J. Roberts School District on the 20th day of May. Signed by Lisa Huzzard, Board President, and me. I just would like to say thank you also. It's been a wonderful, wonderful life here. My family and I lived here for 33 years in OJ, and all 3 of our children graduated from OJ, so I know it's the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to go to item 12.13, which is the approval of the appointment of the Director of Human Resources. Mrs. Crumline, I would like a roll call vote on this.
This is for agenda item 12.13, approval of the appointment of Director of Human Resources. Mrs. Booth?
Yes. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I have to do a motion.
That would help.
Okay, do I have a motion for a roll call vote? So moved. Mrs. Booth and then second by Mr. Hughes. Any discussion? Yes. Mr. Minor?
Thank you. I'll try and make this quick to avoid my usual folksy rambling. I actually put together a written statement. I'm unable to cast a vote in support of Ms. Hay to serve as ONJR's next HR director this evening. Ms. Hay has a great deal of skill in human resources and appears to be quite experienced in the 501c3 sector. However, ONJ Roberts School District is not a 501c3 organization. It is a major public educational institution and should have someone in this position, one of the 5 most senior administrative positions in the school district, with directly related leadership experience in central office. A candidate's skill and experience in an adjacent setting and space does not automatically equate to transition into a new one. For the same reason one would prefer a reasonably experienced cardiac surgeon to perform open heart surgery over the world's best brain surgeon, so too should we be seeking the candidates with the specific experience, skills, and education suited for our district's unique needs. There are many uncertified teachers in our communities, but we would be largely prohibited by law from hiring them to teach at ONJ because a different level of expectation and requirement exists for us. Unfortunately, this same bar is not in place for many of our senior administrative positions and virtually none whatsoever for HR hires. Right now, we're in a period of overlapping learning curves as we face having 3 of our top 5 administrative positions in the district filled by candidates with little or no, literally no, central office experience prior to assuming their position. We increasingly have the inexperienced leading the inexperienced. While some will point to a very short learning curve for someone skilled in a similar sector, our school district's learning curves are not measured in time. They're measured in poorly served staff and children who do not have time to spare while someone else learns. Further, as an institution which serves to educate children and claims to value building relevant skills in their vocation of their choosing, and that's the best way to achieve, we are sending a message that experience in education which is close enough is good enough. Our response to failing to hold experienced professionals to account for poor past performance should not be to bring in those with less experience and qualifications, or adjacent qualification and experience, and then hope and wait. We should hire those with directly related skills, experience, and education, and then hold them accountable for high performance. This is not an admonition for those applying for and receiving these positions. I applaud them for seeking and receiving these opportunities. It is an admonition for boards and hiring administrators generally. The trend of ever-shortening tenures and shallower resumes as related to positions being hired in our school staff, being hired in schools does our staff, those hired, and our kids a disservice, and I cannot yet again cast a yes vote on Hope Alone.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a vote then? She has no discussion.
I feel like since I'm going to vote no also, like Mr. Minor, I will just say that I agree with many of his points. I personally don't need to go on at length about it like that tonight.
Okay, Mrs. Carmine.
Mrs. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yay.
Mr. Hughes? Mrs. Hazard?
Yay.
Mrs. McCreary?
Yay.
Mr. Minor?
No.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Whittle?
Yes.
The yeses have it, the ayes have it, and motion passes.
Thank you.
7-2.
Okay, agenda 13, new business. 13.1 is the approval of Bus Driver Appreciation Week resolution. Whereas bus drivers in service of the district demonstrate a commitment to the safe transportation of our most precious possessions, our children, despite often adverse weather and road conditions. Whereas our bus drivers are often placed in extreme stressful situations which require a high degree of physical and psychological stamina and endurance. Whereas our bus drivers have demonstrated a record of safety and efficiency in the performance of their duties. Whereas our bus drivers make a positive contribution to the school climate and self-esteem of our students, now, therefore, be it resolved that the Owen J. Roberts School District and Board of School Directors designate May 20th through May 24th, 2019 as Bus Driver Appreciation Week in recognition of our bus drivers for all of their efforts on behalf of the school district and its students. Adopted at a meeting of the Board of School Directors of Owen J. Roberts District on the 20th day of May 2019. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the recommended action.
Mrs. Whitlock, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Prophet, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.2 is the approval of policies for second reading as recommended by the Legislative and Policy Committee from the April 8, 2019 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Minor, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Prophet, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.3, approval of policy 245, identification badges for deletion as recommended by the Legislative and Policy Committee from the April 8th meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Minor, do I have a second?
Second.
I'll give it to Mrs. Whitlock. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.4 is the approval of out-of-state and overnight student trips as presented. Do I have a motion? Mr. Fitzgerald, do I have a second? Ms. McCurry, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.5 is the ratification of homebound instruction as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have Mrs. Booth and a second by Mr. Fitzgerald. Do I have any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.6 is approval of attendance at the following conferences for Mr. Richardson and Ms. Bevan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Fitzgerald, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Whitlock, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.7 is the approval of Melissa Booth and Carl Minor to be the PSBA Legislative Policy Council delegates for the 2019-2020 school year. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the recommended action.
Mrs. Whitlock, do I have a second? Ms. Prophet, any discussion? Thank you for volunteering. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.8 is approval of the appointment of our law firm for general legal counsel. Do I have a motion? Mr. Fitzgerald, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.9 is the approval of the appointment of the law firm for our special education. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Hughes, second.
Second.
Mrs. Whitlock, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.10, approval of the appointment of the law firm for our real estate assessment appeals. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Whitlock, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.11 is the approval of the appointment of law firm for our construction matters. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, and do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Minor, any discussion?
I have discussion because I don't remember us ever talking about any of these things beforehand, but So since we never talked about them all before they came on the agenda, we don't use this law firm anymore for our other matters, so I am against using this law firm for continuing as the construction attorneys as well.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. 13.12 is approval of agreement between Kutztown University of Pennsylvania and the Owen J. Roberts School District. Do I have a motion? Mr. Fitzgerald, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion?
Kutztown before that, yeah. That's all.
Go ahead. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.3, approval of appointment, bond coverage, and facsimile signature for board treasurer as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Whitlock, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.14, authorization for employees to act as agents in signing vouchers and checks for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Do I have a motion? Mr. Hughes, do I have a second? Mr. Minor, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.15 is the approval of annual filing of board officer signature for facsimile signature act. Do I have an approval or motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Whitlock, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.16 is the approval of signatures for our safe deposit box. And this is for the 2019-2020 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second? Mr. Fitzgerald, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.17 is approval to authorize the school board treasurer's signature and facsimile signature. Do I have a motion? Mr. Hughes, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Whitlock, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.18 is the approval of banks on depositories of school funds for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Minor, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.19 is the approval of professional services and/or maintenance agreements. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the recommended action.
Mrs. Whitlock, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're on to agenda item 14. I made a little noise there. Information, proposals, statements, and/or questions from individuals or delegates pertaining to any item. Speakers are to indicate their name and township of residence. Speakers will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Please understand this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberation.
Good evening. Cheryl Herzog, Warwick Township. The benefits of starting middle and high schools later continue to be confirmed by evidence and metrics from districts across the country that have made the change. When schools start later, students are getting more sleep, are more alert in class, and are able to learn more. Physically, they are performing at higher levels. Students are more likely to arrive at school on time and in a good mood. And they go to the nurse's office less frequently. We have discussed the correlation between lack of sleep and depression and anxiety, and the increased risk of car crashes, as well as many other negative side effects. In the next school year, we will be one of only 5 Chester County high schools that will start at 7:30. Unionville Chadds Ford's unabashed success in moving 30 minutes later has been documented. Next year, they will be in their 3rd year of a later start. Phoenixville will be moving to an 8:05 start next fall for high school. Westchester is evaluating its options for a later start. Downingtown is probably next. Also, close by, Radnor has pushed back its time to 8:30. Tredyffrin Easttown will start 30 minutes later next year. We can no longer turn away and pretend that it's not happening all around us. And our middle school already starts much earlier than Springford, Pottstown, Methacton, Pottsgrove, and Perkiomen Valley. Logistical concerns about traffic and scheduling are legitimate concerns, but the top concern must be the health and well-being of our children. To lower that priority is absolutely unacceptable. Education of the stakeholders about the science of adolescence and sleep is a vital part of this process, and OJR has not done a thorough job with this, leaving many uninformed or ill-informed, frustrated, or in the dark. Each of the aforementioned districts has brought in a sleep researcher or 2, or sent many of its board members and administrators to a neighboring district's event for education in the science of teens and sleep, allowing all stakeholders to receive the information from a sleep scientist. Our community deserves to be fully and accurately informed. Our community deserves to have students who are healthy in all ways. I know that other options have been put forth for accommodating some students, and I applaud those efforts. Particularly Dr. McKinney, I applaud those efforts that he has made. But a delay in start time would benefit the majority of the students, and the students that struggle the most would benefit the most. Changing the start time would achieve the greatest good for the greatest number of students. And isn't that what we all want? Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 14, board discussion and follow-up. I just want to remind all the committee chairs that in our next meeting, I would like a summary of how we did against your 2018-19 goals, and then we should get our mindsets and get aligned with the district goals for our 2019-20 school year. Okay? Anybody else?
I would just like to comment on the excellence of our students and also some of our staff who've done such a wonderful job to see the expertise of some of these students, our valedictorians and salutatorians, could speak up today. Even though you're not here, still, everybody left, I would just like to acknowledge them myself. Very appreciative of all those excellent staff members and the district for offering some of the excellent courses that we do.
And it's evident about where some of these kids are going to school.
Absolutely.
We should be very proud of that.
Yes. That's all I have.
I just have one thing about goals. So are we looking to set them in September? Okay, all right, just.
So for June's meeting, I just want a little synopsis on how did you do against the goals, and then come September, we'll like to present our new goals going forward.
Got it, thanks.
Cheryl?
I'd like to put Paul on the spot if I could, and ask him to give us an update on the sound system. I understand there's a summer project involving a student, and we looked at this.
Grab a microphone, any microphone.
So we have a summer helper student, AV expert, is going to come in and is going to add more microphones to the system. Unfortunately, this weekend with all the storms, we think one of the amps was blown this weekend, and we came this afternoon and set everything up, and the amp was gone. We have a temporary setup now. We will call in the company. New amp is going to be ordered, put in place. But this summer project will be, we got students involved. We have an AV committee here at the high school, and one of our summer helpers is going to be going to evaluate and fix the system so we have great microphones. But first thing is this weekend's little issue with the amp, and we'll get that fixed before the next.
Am I correct to understand that we looked at the sound system previously previously had quotes that were fairly expensive for the system, maybe 2 quotes or something, and now we've come up with this third option that's
Correct.
less expensive.
But the issue has always been the sound system is an older system, and planning this weekend will happen, the failure of the amp. Now we have to do that also. So now we have 2 projects, one before the next system, for the next meeting amp, and then the added system. So in essence, we're getting a new system for next September.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any board request for information?
I have one. Earlier, Mrs. McCreary said she didn't want to create extra work, but I do think our requests for information create a lot of extra work. So if I could get a list of the requests for information at different board meetings since the beginning of the year by school board member and a tally in board lines, so we can review it next meeting, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm also going to just ask that all board members, if we could just have a quick exec session afterwards, because we abruptly ended our exec session before school board start.
I cannot, it was not on the schedule, I can't say.
Okay, so it'll be a quick 5-10 minutes so that we can just summarize where we were at, because we kind of did cut that meeting short, and it is an important issue that we need to close out. So 5-10 minutes, that's all I'm asking for. Thank you.
I appreciate Mr. Hughes' concern to request for information, which I'm sure I directed at myself and Mr. Minor. However, that is our right. Mr. Hughes is a board member to ask for information, and I do like to exercise that right since I was voted in and ask questions on behalf of many people. So on behalf of Mrs. Herzog specifically, I would like to know how many AP classes are scheduled first period this fall coming up. I would also like to know, to follow up on the curriculum piece, I would like to know how many sections of honors chemistry will be held in the high school, and how many sections of CP chemistry, and I would like to know if there was any waitlist children for the honors chemistry. And I had another question about, we had talked about, and I thought it was in the one policy that we did tonight, where the student activity accounting manual can be found on the website. Is that on the website and accessible to the students?
All right, anything else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.